Hello there and welcome back to the Worship Podcast. I can't believe it's worship. I'm Lester Sim.
And I'm Lester Ong.
And once again, this is the Worship Podcast for amateurs by amateurs. In today's episode, we're continuing on our series here on talking about the Tabernacle. And if you have not tuned into our previous episodes, this concept of a tabernacle just continues through from the Old Testament into the New Testament. And so what we're going to do in today's episode is we're going to look at the very first institution of the tabernacle in Moses' time. And we're going to take a look at the structure, the positioning, and we're just going to talk about certain ideas. I would admit for myself, this is not something that is constantly in the forefront of my mind. So it will definitely sound very amateurish. But I guess that's probably where most of us might be at. So hopefully it's still going to be beneficial to our listeners.
Yeah, including me.
Oh no, I was counting on you being the expert here. But yeah, we'll wrestle through different ideas.
Yeah, and I am writing a course up on the Tabernacle, so I'm sort of like having little teasers here and there until I actually finally land on something that's a bit more academic sounding.
Nice. So it's great because I guess this can be a small little playground for you to toss out some ideas, yeah?
And then if our learned listeners have anything to say, they can always drop us a comment and maybe even challenge or question some things.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not something we tend to think about because it's almost so archaic. It's something of the past, right? It's in Moses' time, and usually my perspective is when we really look at the original tabernacle, in my mind I'm like, man, you're one of those people that you're heavily into Jewish stuff, but I think there is a need for us to still study this, and so while it might not be for everyone, yeah, but I think that's where we have to make that call to go, now we're still going to dig into this.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I look at it and why it's important is because we a lot of our listeners would be people in worship ministry or leading worship or have a deep interest in it. But how can we actually talk about worship, even though we've done it for a full season?
Yes, we have.
Without really looking at a biblical prototype of it. And here in its clearest form, in great detail, so much detail that we can't actually read out a lot of it for you, but the scripture has devoted a huge chunk of detail into establishing the protocol, which includes a structural space, and a way to move through the space, items and furnishings inside the space, all of which are evocative of worship, which is not only in the Old Testament, but is referred to so much, particularly in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, that it can't be said that it was something that was abandoned. And the richness of it, from my perspective, is as you see us study the elements of it. And in fact, the next episode will start going into even more detail, looking at the brazen altar as the first bit of furnishing. But if you look at all of these things, what really amazes me is to see the picture of Jesus in all of it, and how the gospel is portrayed through the tabernacle, and it makes it so much richer. We're worshiping as a New Testament community now, and a New Testament born-again Christian, but we're informed by what God had planned many, many thousands of years ago through the tabernacle.
Yeah. I think let's not forget that even though it was instituted in Moses' time, but the architect behind it all, the one who gave the instructions, was God himself. Yeah, so, and therefore, through this structure, we will be able to see certain things that God would prioritize, or certain patterns that he would want us to observe.
Yeah, absolutely. This is God's intent.
Yes. So it's not something that's made up completely by Moses. Hey, you know what? We're going to have 3 different sections. This is what we're going to do. All these things are instructions that have been handed down to him. He's merely executing it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. So that gives the background as to why we're going to talk about something as detailed as what we're about to talk about, and therefore, where should we start?
Well, I think it's just good for us to talk about the broad structure of it, because the details are actually really, really down to the minutiae, like, how many ringlets made of silver there should be.
Right.
Those things are all very significant too, but I don't think anyone has the time for that.
Yeah.
But so we'll do the structure, and we'll do it in a very broad sense. And
Yes.
I still think of old worship songs like "Take Me Into the Holy of Holies." Now, what does that mean? So, that's exactly what that song is about. You've got "Take Me." I'm not going to sing it because. Should I sing? No, I won't sing. It goes, "Take me past the outer courts into your holy place, past the brazen altar till I see you face to face." So there's this picture of a progression, right?
Yeah.
And so the progression is you've got the outer courts, and that's actually not covered. So, and that's the place where all the sacrifice and killing of animals happens in the tabernacle.
Yep.
And then you've got a place called the holy place. And inside the holy place, you've got 3 items of significance, which is the altar of incense, the table of showbread, and the golden candlestick. And by the way, I forgot to mention the outer courts, you've got 2 items of significance, which is the brazen altar, which is the first thing you see when you enter.
Yep.
And then you've got the brazen laver after that. And then you've got the holy place. So inside the holy place, you've got 3 items. And then the inner sanctum, which is the Holy of Holies, you've only got 1 item with many parts, which is the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep.
And there it says the Shekinah glory dwells above.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There are different wordings for this. So you have the outer courts, you have the inner courts, and the innermost holy of holies. That's also another way to.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what I was brought up to. As in, that's the terminology that I was brought up with.
Yeah.
So same things. Yeah.
Correct.
So inner court would be the holy place, and innermost holy of holies is holy of holies.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome stuff. And you did say that, like, when you first enter the outer courts, the first thing that you would see would be the altar, the brazen altar, the place that you make a sacrifice.
Yep.
Very cool. Okay. I have thoughts running through my head right now, but
go on.
No. We'll get to that. I have to say my thoughts, but okay, yes. Let's continue on. So that's roughly what it looks like from bird's eye view. We've got 3 different areas, regions, and then what next?
And then I think we've got to remember that the whole purpose of this was for God to dwell in the midst of his people. So we mentioned that before in our earlier episodes.
Yes.
We did a biblical sweep. And this has always been the desire that God dwells in the midst of his people. And obviously the New Testament fulfillment's already there, in that we are the temple of the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
But this establishes the protocol. I think we talked about Exodus 25, verse 6, where it says, have them make a sanctuary for me and I will dwell among them. So that's essentially the whole purpose of this. Now, having talked through that in broad terms, what is, and I said earlier that there is an element where there's Christology in the tabernacle. If you have a look at Numbers chapter 2, verse 1 to 32, so I'm not going to read that because it's chunky.
Yep.
And actually not a very interesting read because it's about, surprisingly, numbers.
I find numbers interesting.
Yes, because you are a maths teacher. And did we tell you guys that Lester has memorized pi to 1,500 and how many decimal places?
1,500 too. You did say that in one of the earliest episodes. Yes.
To shame some high school kid.
No. It wasn't to shame. The objective was to prove a point that you could train your memory. Wasn't it? No. It wasn't to shame. Yeah. No, I'm interested in numbers. As in, when I say numbers, I have to admit I do not mean the book, because the book is personally a bit of a tough read for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I also tend to skim read it very quickly when I'm doing a Bible reading plan. But I did pause here, and in fact, some of this is stuff I've actually read carefully myself, so I'm not ripping it off from other people.
Yes.
But other people have said this, so it really does agree. But if you read Numbers 2:1-32, it describes the positioning of the Israelites around the camp. And when I say the camp, and when the text says the camp, it means around the tabernacle. Because the tabernacle moved with the presence of the Lord throughout the time of the wilderness, all the way until the Israelites settled into Canaan. And so you've got this picture of a nomadic group of people moving from place to place, following the presence of God. But they are camped in a very specific way. And Numbers 2 actually deals with that. And so it says on the east side, and quite interestingly, and there's theology, particularly in the praise and worship movement, around Judah being the leader of the movement of the camp. So Judah is on the east, so it always moves eastwards, and Judah moves first. But Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun are on the east side, and if you add up their numbers, there's 188,000 altogether men.
Yep.
Yeah. They just counted the men, but and then on the west side you've got Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, and there's 108,100.
Yeah.
On the north side there's Dan, Asher, and Naphtali with 157,000 people. And then in the south side you've got Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, 151,450 men. So you can't see it because I just orally said that to you.
Yeah.
But the east side is the longest side.
Yep.
Because it's got the most people. Then the south side is the shortest side. It's got the fewest people. And then north and south are in the middle in terms of size, and they are equalish.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yes, keep going. Wait. I was like, what are you talking about? Like the possible length? But I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yep. So in that sense, what you really have, if you took a bird's eye view of the positioning of the camp, you actually see a picture of the cross.
But it's a sideways cross that has its longest leg pointing east.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, then I've heard people like Joseph Prince, who I really quite enjoy listening to. So sorry for those of you who think that's controversial, but he talks about the story of, was it Balaam who tried to curse Israel and it couldn't? He couldn't?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And one of the things he says is he couldn't curse Israel because when he went to the top of the mountain and he looked down, there was a cross. So I'll let you think about that however you want. But there certainly is a really beautiful picture here of God setting this up and foreshadowing the cross.
Wow. But you're also making an assumption that people were arranged like in rows, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, I feel like they would be in clumps. So if they were in clumps, then you would have this largest clump that's pointing east, and then you get this. If you took a bird's eye view, it would be a huge mess. And in our minds,
it could be a rough oval.
So in our minds, we're like, oh, it's a cross. But like if we go back like thousands of years back, it's like, no, it's not a cross. I mean, we're just. Would you say we're speculating?
Not necessarily, because for one thing, it is a very, very messy thing to be in a clump.
Yep.
So you have to assume there must be some organization to this because they had to pick up as soon as the Lord moved.
Right.
And so to keep order, to really have a good account of where everybody is, it's easier to have rows of tents. So we know where everybody is. We know, where's John? Oh, that's John's family.
Yeah.
John's family is always to my right. Sally's family is always to my left.
True Hebrew-like names.
Correct.
John and Sally. Yeah. All right. So I agree with your sense making. But is there any part within Scripture that talks about the roles?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Be good to have a look.
Yeah.
Am I looking now?
Are you asking me if you're looking now? Because I can see that you are looking now.
I am, but I'm not sure if I'm going to look. For one, my eyes aren't that great these days.
Oh, you're like Leah.
Yeah.
Your eyes are dim.
Oh, the unloved one.
Hopefully no one's gonna wake up next to you. Oh, who are you?
Okay. We went there. Okay. Now, I can't see it clearly, but if you read Numbers chapter 2, which I suggested you don't read, but it starts with the Israelites are to camp around the tent of meetings, and that's another word for the tabernacle, some distance from it. So there is a buffer, by the way.
Okay.
Each man under his standard with the banners of his family.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're using military language. So the standard is your military banner, right?
Wait,
Lift up your standard is...
to be honest, this is the first time I've heard that as a military thing. I've never heard of the word standard in the military.
Oh, but you were in the army.
Yeah, and that's why. And that's why it surprises me. Like I've never heard of the word standard. It might be something that's a little more.
It might be Old English.
Yeah. Yes.
So even if you look at the medieval times when the armies marched out, they would have a banner, like a squarish banner, and that's identifies who they belong to, and that's their military standard.
Okay. Yep.
I can't remember the passage now, but there's a passage where the Israelites are victorious, and they say that the name of God is Jehovah Nisi, the Lord
is your banner.
Standard, yeah.
Oh, so banner and standard are the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's definitely a military concept.
Okay.
And so first, the language is military, so you can't have clumps in the military. You tell me you've been in the military. Do people march in clumps?
No. We are in rows. Yep.
And then on the east towards the sunrise, the divisions of the camp, again, that's military. There's divisions.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just, that's how you organize people in divisions. And,
to encamp. Yeah. That's military.
Yep. So given that, I think you could properly infer that there's an organization in how the camps were organized around the tabernacle.
Oh, man. Yeah, I would love to see that. As in, I agree with you, but I'm just tossing it out because I'm pretty sure there may be some listeners that might be thinking, well, it could possibly be a clump. So you hear our reasoning. I do agree with you, sir. So
yes.
Yeah.
And I think the Levites surrounded the tabernacle, if I'm not incorrect. Yes. So you have these divisions, like forming a cross-like thing around it, and then in between the tabernacle and the four arms, you've got the
camp of the Levites will set out in the middle of the camps.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you accept this, I mean, it's a beautiful picture.
Yes, it would be.
It's a beautiful picture of what the community of faith looks like. That we we are in fact saved because of the cross.
Yeah.
The cross is actually the reason why we can be together.
Yeah.
And the cross is what permits us or gives us access to the presence of God.
I do see you write something about the 4 living creatures.
Yes. Okay, this is not in the text.
Yep.
But rabbinical tradition says that the 4 camps, so to speak,
Yep.
each have specific standards or banners. And in the rabbinical tradition, the standard of Judah, representing the other tribes, Issachar and Zebulun as well, bore the figure of a lion, which makes sense. We keep saying the Lion of Judah.
Yep.
And then Reuben, who's the head of the South Camp, has a man's head on his standard. I wonder what that looks like and whose face is it. but this is rabbinical tradition, okay?
And then, smiley face. Yeah.
Ephraim has a picture of an ox.
Yep.
And then Dan has a figure of an eagle.
Yep.
Now, one question, of course, is did the rabbinical tradition pick that up because of those 4 images being obviously pictures of God in other passages we've seen in the Bible, or we will see in the Bible? Or did they have some other source that suggested that these were the 4 standards? And then they went, ooh, that's interesting. The Lord's also depicted by these 4 things. Yeah, so I don't know which came first.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, because this idea of the 4 living creatures does come up not just in Revelations, right? But it also comes up in the Old Testament as well. So it's one of those recurring things that come up, and I don't usually give much thought to it because I don't quite understand it. And yeah, so if you're saying that there's something in here that talks about it, it might shed some light to help me understand it a little more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Ezekiel passage is the weird one, right?
Yes, the wheels, eh?
Yeah. I have no idea, to be honest.
I'll tell you, like and true story, yeah. I read different parts of the Bible disproportionately. So this means that like certain parts, like the Gospels, I read it way more. Certain parts of like the Old Testament, I've barely read, and so my daughter picked up her Bible for nighttime reading, and so she usually picks up one story from the Bible for us to read, and she's like, "Daddy, read this one to me." And I see the title Ezekiel's Wheel, and I'm thrown off. I'm like, how have I never seen this before? And I'm like, is this Bible accurate? And then I realize, I go back to check in my own Bible, and I'm like, yes, it is in the Word. So I'm ashamed to say this, I've never read it before. But when I tried reading it, I realized that I have no comprehension of what's going on there. The wheel's just going in all 4 different directions and stuff like that. So yeah, just laying it out there.
Yeah.
I am confused by this vision. Yes.
Yeah. But it's there, right?
Yes.
So like Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 10, when Ezekiel has this vision, there's this 4-faced thing with a likeness of the face of a man, the face of a lion, then the face of an ox, and then the face of an eagle. So those 4 creatures are there, and you've got the 4 living creatures in Revelation, and they're quite symbolic.
Yeah.
So if that is a picture or a depiction of God in symbolic form, one of the things that a lot of expositors of the gospel will say is you see those 4 facets in the way Jesus is depicted in the gospels as well. So Matthew depicts Jesus as a king.
Yep.
So that equates to
The lion.
Yeah, the lion.
Yep.
And then Mark depicts him as a servant. So you've got the picture of the ox.
Yep.
Luke depicts him as a human person, a true man, so to speak. And so you've got the face of the man. And then you've got the divine picture in the book of John, the one that nobody understands. but that's an eagle depicting Jesus as divine.
Yep.
And so even thinking about that, you can see this sort of unity in the Bible as a whole. We've got this picture here now of the cross, the four standards, and then you could even say that it depicts the likeness or the picture of God as depicted in the gospel in Jesus.
Wow. I agree with three of them. I never knew that an eagle was a symbol of divinity. Is it? Is that me being uncultured?
Well, not necessarily, but you've got this something that's in the heights, in the heavens, an animal that resides high up.
Okay. I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. It all is a mystery. I do see what you're talking about, that it's a thread that runs through. What does it mean? I'm not quite confident with that.
but whatever is symbolic of, I think what makes me feel like this is enriching is that these threads are throughout the Bible, which is a library of 66 texts drawn together from different authorships.
40 different authors, more or less. And it's just
through different eras of history, and there's so much consistency and commonality in them.
All right, so we've looked at the structure, not just the structure of the tabernacle, but the overarching structure from a bird's eye view of how they are encamped, possibly in a structure of a cross that has its foot pointing east. Where do we go from there then?
I don't know how deep we want to go, but maybe one thing I do want to talk about is how the elements of the tabernacle are evocative of Eden. So we talked about how through biblical history there was a desire for God to dwell in the midst of his people, and Eden was the first prototype of God dwelling with mankind. And so the tabernacle actually deliberately points back to Eden in a way as well.
Can you explain how?
So like the menorah or the lampstand is like a tree. There are three divisions, and Eden actually has three divisions as well. You've got the land, you've got the garden, and you've got the center of the garden.
Wow, this is the first time I'm hearing about the three divisions. Okay.
Not my friends, but the Bible Project actually does this quite in a bit more detail.
Okay.
So if you want to listen to that, they have a one episode which I've heard on the tabernacle, which it talks about how it evokes Eden. And then, of course, you've got cherubim. So some of the curtains in the tabernacle have embroidered cherubim on them. So it's almost like the picture of guarding the presence of God. And then, of course, in the Ark of the Covenant, on the Ark, you've got two cherubim touching. So there's this picture, really all these imagery is evocative of a time gone by. And it's almost like God is saying, in this wilderness, there is still an Eden that has been lost, but we can try to recover it somehow.
Wow. That's pretty profound.
And again, it is does it as an element of, and Exodus is not that far from Genesis, but there's still this picture of this thread that's going through the Bible, which I just find really, really amazing.
Yeah. I guess it's also a picture of like that longing for restoration.
Yeah.
Right. Mm.
And in fact, not only longing for restoration, but in a moment I will give you a literary structure, and I think that's really interesting because it points to resting in God as the clear theme.
Okay. And we did talk about this before we started recording, because rest is something that appears quite a fair bit, even in what Christ says, right?
Yeah.
So how does rest place itself or find its place in this entire theme of the tabernacle?
Okay, so this is where I think I want to talk about this bit, and maybe you and I can flesh it out a bit more. But as a literary tool, if you read the description of the tabernacle and its establishment from chapters 25 to 40 of 24 to 40 of Exodus, you'll see a pattern. And so, again, it's easier to see this in a pictorial way, but you're just going to have to rely on my oral description.
Yep.
So, chapter 24, verse 15 starts with the glory of the Lord. Then there's a description of the tabernacle and the priests in 25 to 30. Then 31 in chapter 31, a description of two anointed and skilled artisans, Bezalel and Oholiab, who are going to be responsible for crafting quite a few things. And then it talks about the Sabbath in chapter 31. And then there's a chunk where something happens, which is, remember, Moses has gone up to the mountain to receive these instructions, these very exact instructions.
Yeah.
And he's also received the 10 Commandments and a lot of other things, laws about how people relate to each other. But a good chunk of the law actually is the tabernacle design.
Yep.
And then he's coming down the mountain, and then I think it's in chapter 32, you've got the golden calf incident, right?
Yep.
So anti-worship, you've got designs for worship, you've got, whilst he's doing all that, there's anti-worship going on.
Yeah. How ironic. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. If you look at this as a whole, it is really interesting, right? Because I think when I read the Bible, I get lost in all the details of the tabernacle, and I'm like, ugh, I just want to get on with it. And then I get to the juicy narrative bit in chapter 32 with the golden calf. Everyone knows that story.
Yeah.
That's an interesting bit to read.
Yeah.
Moses breaks his tablets.
Yeah.
Yep, and then slaughter happens and stuff, and then he goes back up again and gets another set of instructions. Right?
God's the one that has to rewrite everything.
Yep. If only I was Control C and Control V. But then the narrative restarts after that. So in 35, it goes. God talks about the Sabbath. Then in verses 30 of chapter 35, Bezalel and Oholiab. So it almost repeats itself.
In a reverse order.
Yeah. Then the tabernacle again broadly and the priests.
Yeah.
And then it finishes, and in fact the whole book of Exodus finishes with the tabernacle finally being established and then the glory of the Lord coming into it. So recap. If you go from 24 to 40 chapters, starts with the glory, then the tabernacle, then Bezalel and Oholiab, then the Sabbath again, then Bezalel and Oholiab, the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord. So that's the pattern.
Yep.
So biblical scholars call that the chiasm.
How do you spell that for us?
CHIASM. So it's a
Thank you.
literary tool where something goes one way and comes out the same way in reverse, and then right in the middle apparently is where the gem is.
It's almost like a clam.
Yes.
That's like holding something in the middle.
Yes, or an oyster with a pearl.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Clams don't have pearls, do they?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yes, it's an oyster. Yes.
Yeah, so biblical scholars say when you see a chiasm, you ask what's in the middle. That shows you where the real point of the text is.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. And so what's in the middle then?
Okay. The middle between all of these chapters is actually Exodus 33, verse 14.
Ooh, here we go.
And it says, "The Lord replied, 'My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest.'"
Wow.
And that's actually the passage where Moses is arguing with God because God has said, "I'm sick of these people." So they've done the golden calf thing, and God says, "Nah, I'm done."
Yeah.
You take the people that you led out of Egypt. It actually says that.
Yeah.
Which I find hilarious. But God says to Moses, "These people you led out of Egypt, you go and I'm not going, but I will send an angel ahead of you." And Moses actually tells God, "If your presence doesn't go with us,
we don't want to go."
Yeah, we don't want to go. That passage has always been quite moving for me.
Yeah.
But then I suppose you get to 33:14, the middle of this chiasm, where God actually relents and he says to Moses, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest."
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
And so, that's... Just sign that for you.
Lester's tearing up. And watching YouTube, I feel like tearing up too. Oh, man. Hey, I just want to say, right, there are not a lot of people that I know who read the Bible and go, "This part makes me tear up," and they start tearing up. So I just want to say I fully honor the heart that Big Lester has.
I wrote this out and nothing happened until I said it.
I sent something, then I saw you wiping your eyes. I was like, "Oh, you're getting emotional." Hey, but that's great. That's great. I see why. Like this is hitting hard for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and as worship people, right?
Yeah.
This is important to us. This is seminal, right? We're all about facilitating the presence of God. Exodus 33 is a key passage which we've probably memorized.
Yeah.
But here it is, from this angle, I'm trying to study this huge chunk of text about temple furnishings or tabernacle furnishings and structure, and right smack in the middle, I'm brought back to Exodus 33 again.
Yeah.
And God is promising, no matter what, his presence is going to be there.
Yeah. That's a great picture.
Yeah.
And so this is why we have to possibly talk about this concept of rest, right? And this rest is not in isolation, just talking about rest, but it's the presence of God that's going to give you rest, going to give us rest. Because tabernacling means that he's with us, his presence is with us. So what does that rest then mean? What does it look like?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think I wrestled, and if this is really the key point of today, I'm pretty happy to stop around here, but maybe let's flesh it out, because this idea of rest is is key. And let me use a Tim Keller phrase: gospel rest.
Okay.
It's kind of key to our understanding of the Christian life. What did the gospel and what did the cross actually achieve for us? Is, I guess, this sense of rest. We have stopped striving to be accepted. We've stopped striving to be able to access God. We've stopped striving to do our own works to find standing with God. Jesus did it all, and because of that, we can actually finally rest. And that picture of rest is not just about us as individuals, because obviously this picture of this, even in Exodus 33, that they're moving, so they're not really at rest.
Yeah.
And in one sense, in the Old Testament, the idea of rest was the settling into the land.
Yep.
And, after that, God gave the Israelites rest from every side. They're not fighting anymore.
Yep.
And so that sort of metaphysical big picture that happens in the life of the Israelites is actually a typology for our life.
Wow. So you're saying, like, it's almost like if without Christ, we are like the Israelites who are in the wilderness, as they're wandering around. But having Christ, recognizing what he has done for us on the cross, it's almost like we have entered the land that God has promised to us.
Yeah. This is the place we're always created for, and the place we're meant to be. And actually, if you think about Exodus 33, verse 14 again, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest, actually kind of suggests that you can be moving and still find rest if you can recognize God's presence in the midst of your moving. And even though I suppose the picture of rest in biblical terms is actually settling in the permanent place, I think maybe this is also saying that God has already promised rest if you would just look to him.
And we did kind of talk about it. Rest doesn't just come in this verse here, but in Exodus when the laws are given, right? And you have this, we talked about it, this weird, I'm just going to call it for what I think it to be. It's this weird law that's in there. And I'm quoting you on this because you said that everything else is don't do this, don't do that. And all of a sudden, here's this random one that's like, you've got like, not all the stuff that's like don't do, but you shall as well. And then you have this weird one that's on the seventh day, like on the Sabbath, you got to rest.
Yeah.
And I know, or rather for me, like I think of it as almost like a pattern for living, or God wants us to rest, find that place where we are not constantly striving. But I wonder with what we're talking about, in the context of what we're talking about, and I asked you this, right? Like 7 within like Christian terms, like 7's a number for completion. And I wonder if there's a small bit of this that's like at the end of everything, in completion, there will be rest.
Yeah.
For my people, right? For those that I've given my command to, at the end of it all, there will be rest. And I don't know. It could be that. It could be other things. But maybe I'm just inferring too much here. But if there's that possibility, I see like how that thread just kind of runs through, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we were talking earlier, I did find it strange that you've got this command to actually rest. I mean, it's not very shaping, is it? Like, don't do this and do this. Honor people, don't kill people,
Yeah.
and don't covet.
Yep.
And then don't forget to rest. Those other things is like do's and don'ts, which kind of has a picture that shapes your conduct. But what has rest got to do with that? And yeah, so I did find it very out of place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a divine impetus for us to actually settle in God, which I think what rest is about. You can be doing things, but be settled in God and find peace in Him. And that's actually a picture of trusting in Him, because the world could be chaotic. Like it is at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of chaos in the world, in the Mideast.
Yeah.
Economic unrest. But what do we do with that? Do we go, well, I better stockpile petrol and diesel, buy electric car? I have a mate who's looking for a big piece of land with a water source going through it.
Yeah.
Or do we go, well, come what may, I'm rested in God, so I'm okay. And then that's a picture of trust.
Wow. I feel like even this subtopic that we've just talked about on rest could be an episode in and of itself. Like it's something that we kind of gloss over because we kind of go, I understand what it means. Like rest is something I know. It's something I do every day when I sleep. And so we kind of think that we understand it. But I think biblical rest is something that's deeper and a foreshadowing of something that is to come. What was it? I think as I look through the lexicon, it says that a rest is metaphorical for a heavenly blessedness in which God dwells. So once again, this idea of rest and God's presence just like coming in tandem.
Yeah.
And of which He has promised to make persevering believers in Christ partakers after the toils and trials of life on earth are ended. So it's almost like you could say rest is a picture of heaven.
Yeah.
When you are done fighting in this broken world and you are reunited with your Maker, that is rest.
Yeah.
It's like job done.
Yep. But for now, rest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that, and it also reminds me of Matthew 11:28. Have I got that right?
Question mark. Wait. Which one are you talking about?
When Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." So we have to come to Jesus, come into His presence, and He doesn't say, you don't have anything else to do, because there's still a burden.
Yes.
And there's still a yoke.
Yeah.
But it's light and it's easy.
Yes. And you're right. It is Matthew 11:28.
Yeah.
I guess it's this picture also of like how the kingdom's here, but not yet.
Not yet.
Right? Yeah. There is still rest here, but ultimate rest is like coming. You can still rest now. That's what I meant.
Yeah. And I think it's quite consistent with what we've been saying. And I'm looking at Hebrews chapter 4 at the moment whilst you've been talking. We talk about the presence of God being fully available, but you still have to press in and turn your attention and turn your affection. So there's an effort on our part.
Yeah.
And so I think on this side of eternity, there's still a work to be done, but the work's actually not to earn our rest, but maybe to hold on to our rest. The work is to make sure we are able to focus on the presence of God, able to remove those distractions so that we can continually enter into God's rest.
Right. Right. Can you read that for us? That particular verse, the one about to make every effort.
Oh yeah. Oh, where was it? Sorry, my eyes are
your
great.
dim
My
eyes.
dim eyes.
Come on, Leah.
Let me start from an earlier bit because my eyes are already stuck on it. And then maybe I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So Hebrews chapter 4, verse 3, which, by the way, as I said, is probably the most evocative book on the Old Testament structure of worship because it's reinterpreting the tabernacle and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But chapter 4, verse 3 says, "Now we who have believed enter that rest." So essentially, believing in the gospel, what Jesus has done on the cross, helps us to enter that rest. And just as God said, "I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest." And yet his work has been finished, so the finished work of the cross since the creation of the world. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day in these words, "And on the seventh day God rested from all his work." And again in the passage above he says, "They shall never enter my rest." It still remains for some that some will enter the rest, and those who formerly had the gospel preached to them did not go in because of their disobedience. Okay, that's not relevant, but we'll get there. And then it talks about Joshua giving them rest. So verse 8. Yes, and I suppose that's what I was saying earlier. When they entered into the land through Joshua, they found rest. And then verse 9, "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from his own work, just as God did from his." And here we found it. Verse 11, "Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will fall by following the example of disobedience."
Right. And so the reason why I wanted you to read that is because my mind just went to this. You know how we talked about that link between rest and God's presence? Possibly, in my mind, what if we can take these two things as interchangeable? And therefore, this means that we have to make every effort to enter into God's presence. It's not, even though he has a tabernacle within us, it's not guaranteed that we are in his presence. We still have to make that effort. And it's what we talked about on our previous episodes, right? You still got to step in. You still have to enter in.
Yeah. So we make every effort.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I'm now thinking about times of worship on a Sunday, for example, of entering God's presence on the first day of the week. Setting the tone, reminding us to not forget about that resting place. Those of us who died in the wool early morning quiet timers, that's our Sabbath at the beginning of the day, where we rest in order to work, because in that sense we remember that there is a place that we can work from that's not striving and not stressful and not anxiety causing, because it starts with rest.
Yep. Very cool, sir. I think this kind of wraps up the episode nicely. And just to give a very quick recap of what happened here, just in case you kind of felt like we went off tangent, which we did to an extent, but there is a reason behind all of this. So we talked about the entire structure of the tabernacle. In terms of that before the bird's eye view, we talked about how tabernacle has got 3 different areas, different regions. We talked about how Israel is encamped around it, and possibly with the military language, it's almost like the shape of a cross, right? We talked about the banners, the standard for each one of them, kind of pointing toward the 4 living creatures, which is a symbolism for the Lord himself, which we see in Ezekiel and also in Revelations. And then with the whole structuring of it all that we see in Exodus, I think 24 through to 40, that's where we see this chiasm, which is an oyster that points toward a pearl that's in the middle. And that pearl in the middle talks about God's presence that will go with you and he will give you rest. And so this idea of God's presence and that idea of rest ties in very well with this idea of tabernacling. And that's why we started talking about rest. So,
and it's because of the finished work of Jesus on the cross.
Yes, and that's the ultimate thing that gives us our true rest. Yeah. So hopefully you're able to follow along with us. Once again, we appreciate you joining in with us. This is going to be interesting personally for me because I'm learning a lot.
And it's esoteric. We learned that word earlier today too.
It is. It's for a niche crowd. But I encourage you, if you're a part of the worship team, and Lester said this at the start, but I'll say it again, stick through with it. I think there's benefit to understanding the patterns that God has set. And in and through it, we understand the architect himself. And if we are worshiping him, I guess it's always a good thing to know more about him. So stick through with it with us. And we hope to see you on the next one, to have you on the next one as we talk about the very first article that's going to be in the tabernacle. So we're going to get through the different articles and its possible symbolism. But otherwise, we have enjoyed having you with us. We hope you were edified. If there's anything that's spoken to you and you want to comment, like, subscribe, please go ahead and do that, just so we are also encouraged. We're always encouraged when people come up to us and tell us that they've enjoyed the podcast. And so we appreciate you, people out there who have done that, who have come up to us to say that you appreciate the content that we're putting out there. And so with that, we'll see you on the next one. But till then, goodbye.
Bye for now.